What's up guys, Julian here. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make X Club skin on skin style, sort of like lo-fi, rave, melodic, trance, techno, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to be showing you how to make it. As always, you can get the full project files, samples, MIDI, presets, everything like that is available from this video at the top of the description on my website. Definitely go grab that. You don't want to miss out, guys. This is a really high quality template. It'll take your tracks to the next level right now today. Definitely go grab that. Thanks for the support, everybody. Every little bit helps, and let's dive in. Alright, so we're at 140 BPM, and the first thing I want to address is crunchiness. Yes, this is a bit crunchy. And there's a way to do that and get the lo-fi thing and get that kind of like ravey, dark trance feel or whatever to it, like we're doing, but then not messing it up. And the key to that is essentially just making it really full. Like, even before you do any mastering or whatever, I've got my mastering rack on here. Before you do any of that, this has to still be like mixed well. It's just like, yeah, we are gonna push it a little bit further and kind of get that out of it. And that's also just like a good technique for, lo-fi house, all that. Anyway, the first thing we got here is the sidechain. So it's just the kick, super short, right? And then everything's sidechain to that, because you get better control. We have this kick here. So it says minimal kick. It's basically just a big fat 909. There's a lot of 909 kicks in these tracks, but you gotta make sure that it's not just any old 909. It has to be really fat and powerful. If you can make them with the drum machine yourself, you probably want to turn the punch up like all the way, or the attack, or whatever it is. I mean, it's just like a very fat, and it's more boomy than you would think too. Like, you might think you want your kick to just be like a little, but you actually want it to be like boom, boom. Right, and then we've got a little bit of a low end cut to keep it a bit cleaner. And then we have our bass line. So what we're doing here musically, we're doing first, fifth, or first, fourth, sixth, and then first, sixth. So it's actually like a pretty simple progression. It's just these long held out notes. Right, and then for the actual sound on this one, it's made using wavetable, so it's actually just one saw wave and then the sub oscillator. I was trying a lot of different things, and when I was comparing with their tracks, I realized like these basses are actually just really simple. I think to try to overcomplicate it for tutorial's sake would kind of throw it off. So literally all it is, it's a saw wave with the sub oscillator, and then it's low pass, and then a bunch of unison. That's what's making it like, really full like that. We've got it sidechain to the sidechain, and the sidechain here is important. I noticed this when I was studying these tracks. It's not just like, a regular long held out respace. It is a long held out bass, but it's sidechained so heavy that it becomes like, like you're getting that eighth note thing there. And then we just have a little low end cut. Then we have the drums, which are really just made up of a bunch of 909 sounds. Now these are all Ableton 909. For two of these layers, I've used the core kit. Right, just like this one, which is just hi-hat and then a little bit of percussion from the closed hi-hat and the snare drum. And that's also being sidechained too. And we're cutting, this is a good technique for the lo-fi stuff too, is we're just cutting a little tiny bit of high end. And again, when I was going and comparing to their tracks, I noticed like if you just let this compared to that, you see how subtle the difference is, but it really does make a big one. We've also got a high pass filter on that, and yeah, it's being sidechained. And then we have this one, which is just the ride. Right, and we're high passing the ride on its own, plus all the same processing from before. I have this closed 909, that's a little trick for getting like a fatter 909 hi-hat, because if you just have this one on its own, it doesn't quite punch as hard as you would want it to. But then if we add in this like punchy one, it's like a little trick to just make it punch a little bit harder. So we got that just playing on the upbeats, and then we have a 909 clap. next thing we got here are these keys. This is super lo-fi, right? So what we're doing here is, again, just using this basic stuff in the scale. If you look at the bass line, you can see, yeah, we're in E minor, and it's literally just like basic E minor scale. Root note, 5th, 6th, 7th, another root note, and really just those notes exclusively, like not really doing too much else, because if you try to add too many different notes in, you might think like more notes is better, right? But actually, less notes is better, and then just make more complex patterns with less notes, Like here we're playing with... having that, like, resolving onto the B there. It's just playing with a few notes rather than, trying to have so many constantly happening. So for the sound, it's made with analog. We got 2 saw waves, low pass filter, which has key tracking, which is good for this because obviously we're playing all across the keyboard. So the lower the note you play, as you can hear, the more closed the filter is. And the higher you play, the more open the filter is. So we've got that. And then, yeah, just a little envelope on that. Amp envelope like that. A bunch of vibrato helps with the kind of like lo-fi, crunchy lead vibes. A bit of unison as well. We have this low pass filter. This is something I noticed too, is like they'll have this lead going like just constantly, but then to keep it moving, this is actually something I've said in my tutorials a lot before too. You just put a little low pass filter at the end of the chain here, or at the end of like after the synth, and it's just moving a little bit and very slowly with this LFO. And there you get a bit of like movement on the sound, and it's kind of evolving throughout. Without having to sit there and do like a lot of hours of tedious automation that might not even change much, This is enough that, most people aren't going to hear it and be like, oh, he just used a low pass filter with an LFO on it. No, like they hear this and they just hear that the sound is morphing and evolving, but it's a very easy way to do that. And then we've got a bit of echo and reverb. Pretty heavy drum bus. Even here, while I'm trying to make it lo-fi, I'm still blending it, so I'm not going back to my old ways there. But we're blending that, so there's a little bit of the dry signal coming through. Helps keep it clean. It's being sidechained, and then we have a high-pass filter, and that's it for that lead. And then we have some vocals. So what it is, it's 2 different vocal samples, right? It's this one, and then this thing. You can hear this one's cool because it's got like a pad in it. So that plays into your track. And even this over here, having like all that atmosphere in it. And then over here, it's the same one. It's just -5. This one's at, -3. So then we go down 5 semitones. So this one's at -8, but it's 5 less from the other one. Confusing, probably. It becomes a lot more subconscious the more you make music. But basically, it's just a little 5th down, and then we're getting like just a different vocal hit out of the same sample. And it sounds cool because then when it comes back, it's like the same thing, just different pitch. This is going through just a bunch of echo. You really don't want to actually use too much on this. As much as you might think like, oh, this has so much space, why not make it super ambient? You actually kind of just want enough that you can hear it, but not like, I wouldn't want like a bunch of extra reverb and a really long feedback and heavy dry wet. Just let that kind of shine. This being sidechain, and then we have a high pass filter. Also, this is really important too. You'll see this like with the next pad too. Like when you have stuff like this and you are doing this like lo-fi kind of crunchy thing, cutting out the bass on these is gonna be the difference between like good crunchy where it's an effect and bad crunchy where it's just like taking over the whole track, right? Like if I take that off, you can hear that like as the track goes through, you get like crunching. So just cutting that is a good way to make sure that isn't going to happen when you have an element that doesn't even need the line. Then we have this pad. Honestly, that would be like a cool pop song. But what we're doing with this is it's meant to be kind of like musical texture, I call it, which essentially like it's not following the chord progression, but it is in that same key. So when you contrast that against the chord progression, it all moves really nicely. So what we're doing here, again, we're just in the key of E minor, but I'm kind of doing this thing where you play with, like, you know, having the 5th as the lowest note, you can see there, and then going up to the 6th, but it sounds like this crazy, like, major or minor major movement because, right, and then while you're going to the 6th there and this, the bass is doing the 4th there. So you see, and that's not even gotta be so calculated like that either. That's me doing it and kind of just going off of instinct and going off of what sounds good and going off of knowing, like, okay, yeah, if I just throw in like a random note, like if I just do that, like, yeah, that doesn't work, right? You gotta know like which notes fit together, but it's not so methodical, like, oh, I had the 4th talking to the 6th over here in the bass line. It's really just like, you know, you play around and you know it's all gonna be in the same scale, and you end up with this cool movement. The other thing here is there's kind of like 2 layers of movement, because there's those like chords going like that, but then there's also, which is half as long, right? You can see it's like spread out and goes while those are changing. So that adds a lot too. Now, for the actual sound, this is made with this violin section. So it's like an actual orchestral recording here. I'll show it to you. And I wanted to try to take this and turn this into a pad. You can hear it actually sounds pretty cool like that too. But basically the idea here is like, you know, I was thinking of making this with a synth or something. You know, maybe we could do like detuned saw waves, unison, all that. I've explained that a million times. A bunch of people on YouTube have already explained that a million times. You know, this is more a concept that I want to show you guys, which is like kind of using not what you would think the sound is to get the sound you're going for. So like in this case, for example, when you hear this in the mix with all the effects, it's probably just like sounds like a pad. You know, maybe FM or some unison being low pass or something. But it's a more like unorthodox way of getting there by taking the violin section and then we low pass it, reverb, a little bit of drum bus too, and now it becomes something else. Now it sounds like this cool analog pad, and like, you know, this will take you very far because, one, you actually don't have to be as good at synthesis to do this. Like, this is typically what a lot of people do when they're trying to just create cool sounds without, like, oh, I'm going to open up the synth and, like, map the key tracking to the velocity and, you know, make it really expressive by having, like, an LFO constantly moving. You know, this is what people usually do when they're trying to get those kinds of sounds without having to do it, because the violin section is kind of doing all that, right? If you think about, like, you know, any instrument as like a synthesizer, it's essentially just got all these different mappings to all these parameters, and you're getting that life in this. Even when it's MIDI, you still get that. So it just can be a more effective way instead of just, again, every time, oh, saw wave, super saw, unison, you know, low pass it. It's just getting more exciting sounds. So then that's being sidechain, and then we have a high pass. And this one you'll really hear it if I turn the high pass off. Now with it. It's like that little difference between the master clipping out and being like too crunchy and being just right. So, that's going to be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get this full project file, samples, MIDI, presets, everything like that from this video. It's available at the top of the description on my website. It really helps support me. You know, if you enjoy these videos, I don't make a whole lot off of them, so this really helps. But also, it's not really just about supporting me. That's just a little part of it. It's really about supporting you guys, giving you the highest quality templates on the market that you can get right now. And you won't get so frustrated. You won't be wondering why you have all the templates and your music isn't good. Because if you get this template, I promise you, it's really going to help you take your music to the next level. Thank you so much for the support, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video.